Explainer. Today, we're going to dive right into the exact steps for tracking temporary CPR skills waivers in the Talent Management System, or TMS for short. Now, I know typing the right codes into a computer system can sometimes feel a bit like trying to solve a giant puzzle blindfolded, right? But don't worry, we're going to keep this whole process incredibly simple. I'm going to explain everything at a level that literally anyone can understand. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly how to navigate the system when an employee needs to hit the pause button on their physical CPR training, whether that's because of an injury, an illness, or just a temporary facility need. Let's get into it.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. 1. Hitting the pause button. 2. Two types of CPR training. 3. The first 60 days. 4. Crossing the 6-month mark. 5. The 1-year limit. And finally, 6. Returning to full duty.
All right, let's start with section 1, hitting the pause button, the initial request. Getting a waiver is basically a super simple 3-step path. Step 1, the employee talks to their supervisor about needing a break because of a medical condition. Step 2, the supervisor connects them right away to the Reasonable Accommodation Coordinator, or what we call the RAC. Now, think of the RAC as a privacy helper. They are literally the only person authorized to receive actual medical information. This is absolutely crucial, guys. Supervisors should never, ever ask for medical diagnoses or look at medical paperwork. Once the RAC reviews everything and recommends a temporary adjustment, we hit step 3, and boom, the temporary waiver gets approved. Okay, moving right along to section 2. 2 types of CPR training, understanding the basics. So before we can pause anything, we need to know what training they're actually taking. We essentially have 2 main programs. First up is Heart Code. This is your traditional 2-year cycle. You do your computer learning, you do your physical skills test, and then you're totally good to go for 2 whole years. Then we have RQI, which stands for Resuscitation Quality Improvement. This one is considered the absolute gold standard. It requires quick quarterly practice sessions, so 4 times a year, on the computer and with the physical practice dummies. Keeping track of which program your employee is in is going to be super important when we get to the 6-month mark of our timeline. Which brings us to section 3. The first 60 days, hitting pause in TMS. So, the waiver is approved. What now? Well, you have to place the employee into a temporary waiver training folder. Honestly, just think of this folder as a digital waiting room. If they're doing basic life support or BLS, you drop them into folder VHA028. If they're doing advanced cardiovascular life support, ACLS, you put them in folder VHA031. Now, here's the golden rule for this step. Do not touch their existing training folders. Leave those exactly as they are. You're just adding them to this new temporary digital waiting room. Simple as that. Once they're hanging out in that waiting room folder, you have to give them credit in the system so TMS actually knows they're on a waiver. We've got a handy cheat sheet here for the exact TMS item numbers you need for those first 60 days. Notice how there are different codes depending on why they got the waiver in the first place. If it's for a medical illness or injury for BLS, you're going to use VA 289091. But if they're on a waiver because it's temporarily in the best interest of the facility and the veterans we care for, you use VA 289090. Just match the right code to your specific situation. Okay, but what happens when day 60 rolls around and the employee is still hurt? Well, if it's for an illness or injury, that waiver can be extended. But this extension has to be reviewed and approved by top leadership like the chief of staff. If they give it the green light, you just re-enter that exact same illness code into TMS at every 60-day interval. Day 60, put the code in. Day 120, put the code in again. It just becomes a simple repeating loop. Keep in mind though, waivers for the best interest of the facility are strictly for the first 60 days only, so any extensions past that point absolutely have to be for a medical reason. Let's keep going. Section 4, crossing the 6-month mark, the 180-day shift. Now, you might be wondering, what actually happens in TMS if the employee is still on this temporary waiver and still can't do physical CPR after 180 days have passed? Do we literally just keep doing the exact same repeating loop? Well, actually, scratch that. No, we don't. At 6 months, the rules shift depending on the type of CPR training they were taking. Remember those 2 programs we talked about earlier? Well, at 180 days, anyone who is in that quarterly RQI program must swap their training folders. Because they've been out of practice for half a year, their old RQI folders get removed and they're placed into the Heart Code Complete folder instead. On the flip side, if they were already in the traditional Heart Code program, they just stay exactly where they are. No changes needed. To make this super clear, here are your exact steps at the 6-month mark. Step 1, swap out those folders if they were in RQI. Step 2, make sure the employee finishes their computer training for Heart Code. And remember, a waiver only pauses the physical skills test, not the computer learning part. They still got to do that. Then, step 3, after the computer part is completely done, you just keep recording that same 60-day illness code we talked about earlier. That tells the system they're still excused from the physical test. Moving into section 5, the 1-year limit, the final decision. So, as the timeline stretches past 6 months, you just continue to reassess and enter that same TMS illness code every 60 days. You'll punch it in at 240 days and again at 300 days. But listen up, because here is the absolute golden rule. A temporary waiver cannot ever, under any circumstances, exceed 365 days from the initial start date. 1 year is the absolute maximum limit, period.
As you start creeping up on that 1-year mark, usually around day 360, a final decision has to be made. The employee really only has 2 options here. Option 1, they convert to a permanent skills waiver, which means you assign them brand new permanent waiver folders in TMS, like VHA 033 for BLS. Or option 2, they are finally healed up and they return to full non-waiver duty. Whatever ends up happening, they can never just sit on a temporary status past day 365.
All right, our last section, section 6, returning to full duty, unpausing the game. Returning to full duty involves 3 really simple steps. First, you take them out of that digital waiting room we created, meaning you go into TMS and remove that temporary waiver folder. Second, you have them complete the physical CPR skills test that they've been putting off all this time. And third, once they pass that test, you establish a brand new 2-year certification date right there in the system. Now, there is one specific little rule to watch out for when you're bringing someone back. If they're returning to the heart code program, they just do their physical skills and they're done. Super easy. But if it's determined they're returning to the RQI program and they've been gone so long that they are more than 2 quarters behind, you can't just pick up where they left off. You actually have to assign a special restart folder that's VHA 088R for BLS, and you have to notify the RQI support team to reset their profile entirely. Before we wrap this all up, let's lock in these final rules. First off, never manually adjust due dates during a waiver to try and fix red flags in the system. Just don't do it. Second, the manual TMS credits, meaning those codes you type in yourself every 60 days, those are your actual proof of the waiver status. Third, as I mentioned, the computer training is always required first before they enter the waiver program. And finally, never assign RQI and hardcode complete to an employee at the exact same time. The system will literally just get confused and won't know what to do. I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. By mastering these really simple step-by-step TMS tracking codes, we drastically reduce administrative errors and totally eliminate a lot of confusion. But how does simplifying this computer compliance ultimately translate into faster, better care for our veterans? Well, think about it. When supervisors and administrators aren't bogged down fighting with a computer system and trying to figure out codes, they have so much more time and energy to focus on what truly matters, supporting our healthcare teams and ensuring our veterans get the absolute world-class care they deserve. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.